spoke to Mark last week about contract negotiations. He revealed to us at latter stages of discussions, but from the board's perspective, and there's also been speculation about Mark's future as well. From the board's perspective, what is Mark and Neil's future?
Well, we'll be looking to offer Mark and Neil a new contract when their contracts currently expire at the end of the season. It's when you look at managerial situations, and Mark and Neil now are the sort of the third longest serving managerial partnership, if you like, in English football. And you look at, there's a small element of fans which are saying, we want to change, we want a different manager and stuff like that. And I get that, and football is passionate, and we've all got our opinions, whether it's about what colour shirt you're playing, or what manager you got, or who plays. The managerial appointment is the most important decision we're going to make. And I just think that in terms of what Mark and Neil have done for the football club since their appointment, it's very difficult to fault. What they've done is with far more positives than negatives, and I think with any management team or any manager, they will make mistakes. They will have good seasons and bad seasons, and I suppose the longer you keep a manager on a contract, the more likely it is that he's going to have a bad season. Which if you keep someone for a year and sack him, you're never going to know. And I think we've got a good relationship with the two of them. I think we've made some mistakes this season. I think without question, we will do things differently next season in terms of the relationship that the board has with the manager and Neil and the management setup. We will be much closer. We will be much more hands-on, and I think also we will look differently at the way we structure our budget next year. I think we made a mistake this year on going for a smaller squad with higher on higher wages. It hasn't left us lots of room to manoeuvre. We've been fortunate to an extent with injuries, but we have had some key injuries at key times. And I think for a number of reasons, the season's been a disappointment. We got off to a slow start, and I think that's often difficult to turn around. And we've obviously started this year off not in the way we all hoped. So I'm talking around here, but I think essentially Mark and Neil have got a lot to offer still. I think we're learning all the time, and I think they're learning all the time. Mark is investing a lot of time in taking his B licence now, which means he'll be one of the most qualified football managers in the country. The football club has invested heavily in that. We've helped Mark with the costs of doing all that sort of stuff. We've invested heavily in a youth academy setup. We've invested heavily in improving and acquiring our training facility in terms of it's all now being under our control. So there's lots of things that we've got right this season, but inevitably I think there are things that we've got wrong. I think we've got more right than that we have got wrong, but I think there's a lot of things being put in place this year that actually are worth accepting that this has been a transition season. It's been a disappointment, but after having 2 seasons in the playoffs, no one's got any right. Fans, chairman, directors, no one's got any right to expect that Mark should deliver once again a playoff position or an automatic position when you've got a budget which indicates you should be halfway. So I think Mark and Neil have earned the right to be talking about an extra contract. And I think it's the right decision for us to be giving them that vote of confidence and that security. And that's what I hope we'll be concluding in the next few weeks. And there will be some fans who won't agree with that. I think the majority of fans will think it's the right move. And we ain't going to please all the fans all the time. We know that. But I think if fans look back on the track record of this board, there are far more positives than there are negatives. And there are quite a lot of fans out there saying, look at the clubs that have changed their manager. Nothing necessarily changes. I was looking at League Two this year, where we are now. How many clubs in the bottom half have changed their managers, and yet they're still in the bottom half? What's changed? The only thing that's changed is they're financially a lot worse off than they were before they made that change. Portsmouth is a classic. They changed their manager. I think they've gone downhill since then. We can all go through all those clubs who have changed, and actually very few of them have seen a significant improvement in results. In Northampton, clearly the jury is out, too early to say, but a number of them. have not actually improved at all, whereas some actually who are stuck with managers like Accrington Stanley, stuck with their manager despite an awful start, perhaps they're beginning to see that investment and that confidence and that continuity and stability is beginning to pay off. And I think for Cheltenham Town, stability at board level and within the managerial setup is really important. And we have to trust Mark and Neil to make the right decisions. And as I say, I think they've got it wrong on occasions this time. But I'm the first to admit that I've got lots of things wrong as well. So we all are human.
It's dangerous territory because I think we know that football is it's got the mindset now. 10 games, on a bad run of form, and all of a sudden fans want a change. Do you think it's a suggestion of maybe itchy feet? And sometimes you get the cold feet and you want to make a decision, but sometimes if you have the patience with a manager, not forgetting John Ward finished mid-table, 2 seasons in a row before getting promotion.
Yeah. In a way, you see, Mark's problem was being successful relatively early, whereas John Ward took a while to get to that situation. Near the bottom, then we were getting mid-table finishes, and then we built up. With Mark, having saved us from what looked like relegation, taking over from what was an awful era for the football club. He then got 2 successive playoff positions. So he set his stall out really, really high, and actually it's very, very difficult to get better year on year. And obviously we all strive to get better. And the challenge for John Ward was to save us, was to get mid-table and then get up. And he did that over a period of time. With Mark, he actually jumped the gun a bit and got us into playoffs earlier than anybody probably expected, and then did it again, which was amazing. And then, of course, this season we haven't managed to do that. And I think Mark and Neil and all of us, we will look back at the decisions that we made at the start of the season and decisions we've made during the course of the season, see which ones we got right and which ones we got wrong. And I think we're fairly clear where we've gone wrong this season. It's still not too late to turn things around. Still a lot of games to play, But I'm a realist. We're 12 points off the playoffs. So I think if we can get into those playoff positions now, it will be an incredible achievement. I think the top 7 seem to have been getting away a bit, and the rest of us are sort of struggling to get through consistent wins, back-to-back wins. It's not really happening for anybody. And that's why it's quite an exciting division, but actually I'd much rather, of course, be nearer the playoffs than we are. But we ain't. We've tried to do a little bit in January, but not very much. Because ultimately we're not going to throw money at the situation and then end up with next season saying to Mark, sorry Mark, because we spent what we did this year, we can't give you anything like the playing budget next year. What I hope is that this has been a transition season. We'd hope to get the playoffs. We might not now achieve that, but the bottom line is we will come through this season, we'll have learned some lessons from trying things differently, and we will be in a financial place that enables us to offer and give Mark a similar size playing budget to what he's had this year, which has been quite good. It's been quite a good playing budget, but I think we just haven't left ourselves enough room to manoeuvre.
Now, reading, you mentioned in there fan opinions is going to be very largely different between Yates getting a contract and Yates not getting a contract. Fan opinions is something that you pay attention to and the club pays attention to. Some of those suggestions are saying that the board are unambitious, and by maybe referring to this being a transition season, maybe that makes you unambitious. But what would your argument be against that?
Well, we didn't start off thinking it's going to be a transition season. We obviously were ambitious at the start of the season. We gave Mark what we felt was a good budget. We signed good players on good wages, and I think actually most fans, if they were honest, would say, and I think I recall, the comments at the time were that fans felt Mark had put together a strong squad with proven, experienced players used to playing at League One and this level, and that we would have a good shout. And I think, and that's part of the problem, is that fans now were confident at the start of the season with the squad that we'd put together, Mark put together. But because that hasn't delivered, there's a sort of thinking now, we need to change. We need to change the manager. He's failed. But I think as directors, we have to take a more considered and less reactionary approach to that. We accept it's been disappointing, but I think I think we've still got a very, very good manager and a very, very good assistant manager and a very good structure and setup at the football club, that we can actually bounce back and have a good season next season. That we don't need to make wholesale changes with a manager at board level or with the things we're doing. It's not wholesale changes that are required now. It's a period of sitting down and understanding and then making some informed decisions. And I think the other thing is that fans, when they call for a manager to go or a new manager to come in, clearly what they don't know and can't be expected to know is what the contractual implications of those decisions are. And the contractual implications of getting rid of a manager and an assistant manager for any football club are quite significant, very, very significant. And you don't take those decisions lightly. I've been in the chair now 18 years. We got rid of quite a few managers in that time. We're not afraid of making those decisions when we think the time is right to make those decisions. We all know there are managers here who've moved on because they've been sacked by the board of directors. So if we felt that Mark and Neil weren't right, we would not be offering them new contracts, because we are. It's not that expensive, arguably, now to get rid of two people like that towards the end of their contracts. So I think, we weighed up all the pros and the cons. We haven't agreed a new deal with either of them yet, but this is the route we are minded to go down.
Do you think, just on that point, and we're going to come to things behind the scenes as well in a minute, but just one more point about the players out there. You said it's the strongest squad that many people have said that has been put together for a while. Do you think there's an element of less work rate out there? You in the past few years, when you've had some of the players like Russ Penn and Keith Lowe, and people argue that they gave everything for the shirt, do you think there's an element of perhaps something out there between the 11 that start on a Saturday that maybe they aren't giving everything they could give?
Well, I think I think in many ways we've been a bit dysfunctional as a team this year. So, at the start of the season, the defence was poor, but we were scoring goals. Of late, the defence has been much better, but we haven't been scoring goals. We haven't really functioned, apart from the odd game, as a completely successful unit, back, front, middle. But we've had some superb performances. Unfortunately, most of them have been away from home.
Yeah.
But when you go to Fleetwood and when you go to Southend, and some of the have been excellent performances, and you can understand why the manager will be tearing his hair out to see why we can go and do that against Fleetwood, and then with respect we come at home to Mansfield and at home to Accrington, where we're expecting to put on a decent performance and get a result. It doesn't happen, so it must be very difficult for a manager to deal with that situation. So I think for whatever reason we haven't been consistent, and as a team, I think players individually haven't been consistent in the main, and certainly I suspect Mark has not been clear in his own mind about his best formation, his best starting 11, and it's been tried and tested, different people, different positions, and different combinations and stuff like that. So I think that has been part of our problem this year, and we've had some, we've had not lots of injuries, but we've had injuries to the wrong players, if you like. We've had injuries to sort of players. I think David Noble injury, I think, has hit us quite badly. Stevie Elliott at the start of the season, and I think also, because of the FA Cup exit, it meant we didn't have any funding really to enable Mark to make significant changes to his squad at any one time, and as a consequence, he was forced to perhaps get rid of players who perhaps in another season he might not have wanted to get rid of, Russ Penn and Keith Lowe. But the situation at the club meant that he had to make savings to bring players in, and it's a shame, I suppose, that he had to do that. Those two players are now playing very well in the York side, which is going quite well. But I think for the club, the decisions were the right decisions, given where we were.